Zoom has erected its headquarters in San Jose, California, while Skype has erected one key arm of its operations in Palo Alto, California. This is the traditional territory of the Muquema Alone tribal nation. The current members of this nation are direct descendants of the many missionized tribal groups from across the region. We, who are able to connect with each other via Zoom or Skype, are deeply indebted to the Muquema Alwan people, as the lands and waters they continue to steward now support the people, the pipelines, the technologies that carry our breaths, images, and words across vast distances to others. As we engage as artists and scientists in our live stream online performance, we personally acknowledge the debt that we have incurred and that is amassing each time we meet online. We are all indebted to those peoples and communities whose waters and lands have been poisoned as a result of the extraction of metals and rare earth elements required to fabricate the machinery through which we speak to, hear from, and view each other. We are indebted to these peoples whose working lives, youth, and vitality have been spent in unsafe spaces and in intolerable conditions, so that so many citizens of the so-called developed world might have easy access to these and related devices. As we encounter each other each day through our email accounts, our messaging apps, and our vital meeting rooms and chat rooms, let us strive to remain mindful of the incalculable debt that we owe. I would also like to acknowledge our colleague Jill Carter for sharing this thoughtfully crafted text with us.
This is a prototype performance. This is a test. This is a kaleidoscopic attempt to perform the quest for artistic intelligence, A/I, in the context of artificial intelligence or AI developments. Smart home, smartphone, smart car, smart fridge. We find the creative glitch. We are exploring image making and imagination making, searching for paradoxical, poetic echo data. Geoffrey Hinton, inventor of the neural network approach, imitating the human brain in deep learning machines, says, it may be a very long time before computers can understand poetry or jokes or satire, as well as people. Let's share the laughter of resilience, togetherness, and creativity. Welcome to the show.
How would you approach a being with respect that you might have been detached, like you might be native, but then you might have been detached from the ways in which our ancestors would communicate to these beings in a respectful way. So what's the way that you approach a being that's been harmed for like years and years and centuries and centuries without coming to it as, with saying, I'm not a threat. I'm not a threat. I'm not a threat. The first reaction was like, okay, I give you my child. I give you my child. being who was speaking through my mind, speaking through my mind. Speaking through my mind. And I just have to stand here and live with years and years and years of what I see now and all the destruction and the restrictions, having plastic or constricting others. And I'm trying to protect my baby, my next seed. I'm humbled by the fact that we're still alive and knowing that trees supply us with oxygen. They clean our water. Some trees give nitrogen to the fruits and the vegetables and the earth. They give us shading, they give us homes. I have a roof over my head because of trees.
Nime emerges from a need to remember an all but forgotten language. The language of those marker trees manipulated as saplings by indigenous ancestors to direct human movement towards good hunting grounds, towards fresh water, towards food caches, and towards the sites of ceremony. It begins with a simple question. How does the contemporary indigenous body begin its approach? What ancient protocols must be remembered and performed to initiate encounter, to seek consent? Ganagahea dancer Candy Blair explores the protocols of approach in this first phase of the project as she seeks to regenerate the relationship that has been ruptured through the depredations of the colonial project. She begins as a stranger, placing herself at the edge of the woods, declaring her intentions and waiting for a response, an invitation, a welcoming. This is ceremony, an iteration emerging from and belonging to this historical moment, to all historical moments. Here, as ever it was, in such encounters, all times become one. We who sought to capture these images, this encounter, stood outside and apart from this ceremony, separated by a liminal threshold inscribed by the capturing technologies we held before us, GoPros, cell phones, cameras, iPads, video cameras. And so we too had to seek consent, an invitation to witness the encounter, and a permission to record, and so become history keepers, creating a mnemonic with which to remember and recount a contemporary iteration of an ancient encounter between two scarred survivors in the gentrified wreckage of a once healthy savanna teeming with deer, alive with medicine. Antje Buddha then invited Astad Dibu, a Kathakali dancer from Mumbai, to witness this encounter, to listen in on the recorded conversation, and to respond as an indigenous body directed by the laws of another land. And his somatic response opens up a new path of inquiry, a new conversation to explore. Nime, she dances. Nime, he dances. Nime, that one dances. Miigwech. Nime, that one is dancing. Indigenous marquetries abound across Turtle Island. These natural bodies, subtly reconfigured by the indigenous ancestors, are earthworks that speak to us across the centuries in an imperfectly remembered language. Many descendants of those who inscribed their teachings and directives in mounded earth, on scrolls of birch bark, on painted rocks, and in the twisted boughs of trees, labor to reclaim and to interpret these systems of inscription with as much vigor as they invest in the revitalization of their nation's languages. This micro-project concerns itself with embodied intelligence, the communication of that intelligence as a performance enacted by the other than human body, and human response to that intelligence performed somatically. How does the contemporary indigenous body read, hear, and develop language with which to respond to this encoded legacy? What do other bodies read and hear? What is the language through which those other bodies respond?
something like this.
It puts me in a good mood, you know?
First of it all, try to understand what is the theme about I'm making music in that moment. And then I make a tuning, a cosmic tuning or a molecular tuning. I tune my electronical instruments. And
what instruments are these?
These are modular synthesizers and frequencies. That means they pulsing. And I also use normal instruments. I use tunable instruments like a sitar, a string instrument, different string instruments.
So you play all of these instruments yourself, or you have somebody playing them?
I play them all by myself.
Wow, how did you learn so many musical instruments to play?
They speak to me. I'm always curious about atoms. It has all the data in.
Stimmdaten.
Like wave frequencies from atoms. If I want to tune hydrogen, it's very specific. It has more than 5 different waving electrons around, which I can catch. It's only one, but it's 5 different levels.
You are actually working with the element, or just with the mathematical representation of that element?
I'm working with the math, working with the physics of it. And the physics gives me the true frequencies. I take the frequency of the Balmer series, or the Paschen series, or the Brackett, or the Lyman series. So the
what are these series? I never heard about that. What is that?
The vibrating series of an electron in between of the equalizing of the corn from hydrogen. Around is circling an electron. When it's aroused, then it's turning in a different series.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So it can be an infrared spectrum, and can be an ultraviolet spectrum. It can be a spectrum of normal tones.
So it depends what animates this particular matter, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. This means I can take the same tones, take the same element, and have different tones.
So you're using frequencies of dynamic dance movement, so to speak, of the atom, and that what's happening within the atom itself.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I really hope, Lars, that we get a chance to work together in a live performance setting.
Oh, me too.
You know, so that we can experiment with these kind of soundscapes and compositions that you create. They resonate deeply, and I think they do resonate deeply because they are made from the world in which we live.
first case of COVID-19 in Singapore was registered on 23rd January. The government imposed Code Orange protocols on the 7th of February. On the 14th of February, my father called me to tell me I would have to undergo brain surgery. I traveled to Mexico on the 26th of February to be with him. The World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a pandemic on the 13th of March. My father died on the 14th of March, 4:20 a.m. I traveled back to Singapore on the 28th. Upon my return, I was placed on mandatory quarantine. The government would check my GPS location thrice a day. As soon as I was able to, I started cycling every day. It was the only way to stay alive. I charted routes, I observed trees, I contemplated the ocean, I collected data. In their book, What is Love? Losing Gatari argues that thinking takes place in the relationship of territory. If this is so, what other way to define people data about the relationship between life and earth? Which is to say that the only moment in which people data can even come to exist is when we tell stories about life and death on this planet.
So with the original use of the Lantana Magica, where was the light source for those
So the light source,
magic lanterns?
the original ones were candles, and they had, and the Laterna, and this is the distinctive quality of those.
But they were, but the light source was not in a particular enclosed thing. It was just standing there.
They were in a housing with a chimney. So the way these devices work is actually a really fun confluence of hacking and engineering, because these the original devices that I have that are available commercially work by taking quite literally the same materials that are found on a smartphone screen and placing it on a large platform. And a tub with a clear bottom is placed on the platform that has the smartphone screen on it, and you pour liquid resin on top of that tub. A build plate then descends into the liquid tub up to a diameter of anywhere from 0.5 to 0.5 millimeters above the tub. And then the screen turns on and shows an image. And the image is a shape that is cut from a 3D object.
It's almost like a scanner. It looks.
It is. It's a reverse scanner. And so the image that is shown on the screen is shown with ultraviolet light. And that causes the liquid resin in the areas where the light is displayed on the screen to harden by exposure. And then what happens is the build plate mechanically lifts off, and the tub, the bottom of the tub is actually a slightly flexible material. So what happens is the rendered resin is pulled off the bottom material and sticks to the build plate, and then it descends again and repeats this process successively. So a 3D printer produces an object by taking a 3D rendering of an object and slicing that object into several thousand two-dimensional images, basically cutting it up into thin slices, basically like projector slides.
Right.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
and so it is producing a three-dimensional image, a three-dimensional object by deconstructing that object into
It's a pile. It's a pile of images.
It's a stack of images.
Yes.
It's a stack of projected images.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what you're doing.
Yeah. And
in trying to build the Laterna Magica now.
Yeah. And so the 3D printer is itself, these resin 3D printers are a wild form of projector that is using an emitted display to harden resin and build an object. So
and using a particular spectrum of light.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now we're talking about ultraviolet light. So we are kind of moving along the spectrum of light a lot in our experiments.
It's fascinating to see because there's more to light than just what we can see, and more to light than what we normally rely on for our vision. And so these machines are taking advantage of different forms of light. The engineering of the Laterna Magicas coincide with the spreading of the engineering of telescopes in particular. So as telescopes and lenses, and there were more people interested in astronomy that were procuring the equipment necessary to construct a telescope, we got to people like Christensen Huygens, a Dutch philosopher and mathematician, who started building these early designs for magic lanterns.
What's new?
What's up?
What's up? What's next?
What's next?
Characters. Yang Ying, a Chinese woman, her late 20s or early 30s, a Canadian-trained mathematician, specialized in data science and machine learning. She is the daughter of a Chinese political activist who had been shot to death during the Tiananmen Square massacre. She was sent overseas at the age of 14 by her mother immediately after her father's death. She's now a naturalized Canadian. Mama, or Old Ying, a Chinese woman in her late 50s or early 60s. She is Ying's mother and lives in Beijing alone. State security officer, preferably a man, age unspecified. Oracle Jane, a machine learning software. It can be a pre-recorded female voice, a young woman's voice, but with a robotic quality. Mama, do you ever wonder why Uncle Chen and Uncle Lin were arrested 3 days after Dad disappeared, but Uncle Wang and Aunt Sue were spared? They were all at Tiananmen Square with Dad at the same time. Why did the party sentence some to decades of jail, but let others go free? There does appear to be a general pattern here. Mama pattern, Ying, yes. Look at this graph. This cluster of people. Ying's fingers zoom in the graph on the screen. Most names in here belong to unfortunate souls sentenced to 10, 20 years, even life. But here, in this cluster, 87% of the people still walk the earth as free men. Yes, some are under constant surveillance, but nevertheless, Mama, reading the legend of the church with difficulty. Ying coming in. Principal component analysis. Mama, oh, all that technical mumbo jump. Ying, don't worry about the labels, ma. Basically, once Jen is done massaging the data, we are presented with this nice little graph here. A graph on the style of different people's writings, not the content, but the style. Mama, reading out slowly from the graph. Level of abstraction. Ying, yes. From the left, you start with writings that are literal and physical. Blood, tears, sweat, guns and barrels, classic propaganda stuff. As you move to the right, you get increasingly abstract writings. Now, vertically, we read writings from straightforward to ambiguous. Aunt Wen was the queen of irony. Her words seemed to mean one thing, but they often meant the opposite. Subtly but surely inviting doubts from her readers. Mama, she stands out on your chart. Ying, top right corner. She's an outlier, all right. Mama, so you think they imprisoned her because of her writing style? Like a preemptive strike? Ying, with most effective writers dead or arrested, Mama points at the chart. That's the cluster. This cluster here. Ying, you got it, Ma. I call it the unicorn cluster.
need to find all the fingers, because we are going to explore what ecodata are. So I'm curious myself. Ooh. I think you kind of need protection gear times of COVID. I built an indicator of COVID time on my head. It's called hair. So it's a form of biodata that comes in the form of hair length. It used to be very short, maybe 4 millimeters or 5 millimeters, and now look at this. Right? This is just this is how COVID grew. This is how it happened. So we can measure exactly, scientifically, we can scientifically measure how long I've been exposed to rattling the curve, right? I have bought a set of tools from, well, I mean, all data analysis will tell you the only company that you buy these days from is, of course, a company that's named after a very wild river. And of course, the very, very, very special challenge is to not have my glasses on. So we should all be concerned. But we have to take risks, right? At least I already have a bloody nose. So yeah, like that. How do I start now? I will use this thing, and it's charging, but I can just unplug this here. Yeah, I will just do this and now okay, now I have to again have to keep the mask on. Can't lose the nose. Should I maybe use this? I mean, I can't really see much, honestly. This is really lots of hair, I'm telling you. Does look strange, does it? Collecting data is not easy. You have to first find data. And then you have to collect the data. And then you also have to analyze the data. And in order to analyze the data, you have to come up with some questions. I mean, really good questions. Yeah, I think my data visualization performance is kind of over. So yeah, this was my attempt to get rid of most of the hair on my head. This also was a data performance. It was fully visualized and also sonified. And there was also an algorithm instrument tool thing. So this is what radical self-care looks like. You just go for it, and you take people with you, down into the abyss. Artistic intelligence exists.
Artistic intelligence.
Artistic intelligence exists.
Intelligence.
Artistic intelligence exists.
Artistic intelligence
Artistic intelligence
exists.
exists.
Artistic intelligence exists.
Artistic intelligence.
Artistic intelligence exists.
Artistic intelligence exists.
That was fun.